Yes. Right. Thank you, Doctor. Very fetching.
Thank you. I didn't have time to change. You said come at once.
If you got rid of that, and that, you might look a bit more workmanlike.
First he interferes with my social life, now he adjusts my wardrobe.
Well, I have a job tracking you down, you know. How was the fancy dress party?
It wasn't fancy dress.
No?
It was going very nicely till I got your message. It's 5 minutes to midnight. What's up?
The chief accountant of a building society stayed late in his office tonight and tried to blow his brains out.
Yeah, that's nasty.
Charles Keever, age 62. Wife, one married daughter in Australia. They managed to remove the bullet, but he's in a deep coma.
Which building society?
The Park Bank Mutual.
Can't say I've heard of it.
Oh, it's one of those provincial tiddlers that haven't yet been swallowed up by a bigger, more mutual, more friendly society.
What's in a name?
Established in 1922. Smallish assets, solid if unspectacular record of investment and mortgages. It exists on what you might call working class capital. Has a board of 5 directors. The Keever's been chief accountant for 19 years. He was due to retire in 6 months.
Hardly the time to shoot yourself.
Oh, it depends what you've been up to.
You been to the hospital?
Yes, they don't give much for Keever's chances. They still don't. The reason I was called in is this. The CID put a man by his bedside before Keever went into his coma. He muttered a few things.
Most of it just muttering, except the word fraud comes in a couple of times. Couldn't it have kept till tomorrow? What's this?
A copy of a flight booking to Switzerland. One way.
Thank you. Why, hello, sir.
Good evening, Proud. How are you?
Fine, thank you, sir. Which floor?
Top, I was told.
Oh, same as us.
Well, naturally, since it was your Inspector Gamble who issued the summons.
It isn't often we see a member of the bench here, especially this time of the night.
It was just as well it is so damned late. If magistrates started hanging around police stations, lawyers would start whining that their clients were being prejudged.
Yes. I didn't realize that Inspector Gamble would still be in his office.
Oh, yes, an urgent request for my help. Well, I must say, I wish I'd had a chance to get all this stuff off. Chamber of Commerce dinner. Heaven knows what else since.
I hope Inspector Gamble explained to you why he wanted to see you at this hour.
Some inquiries he seemed to think couldn't wait. Personally, I don't see why it all couldn't have been dealt with in the morning.
I'm sorry, it's rather an old lift.
It's a lift. For a man like me who's had one heart warning already, it's enough. Let's hope we aren't all going to damn well suffocate.
Oh, just a minute. Archie, do you mind?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Look, as I'm here on official business, I left the rolls right outside the station. I trust nobody's going to have me for obstruction.
I shouldn't think so, sir.
Look, my business with Gamble oughtn't to take too long, however. Just in case, here are the keys. Perhaps you could give them to someone to handle in the main desk and explain.
Certainly, sir. I'll see to that. His room's just down there on the right.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good night to you.
Good night, sir. The devil's Inspector Gamble up to?
It's a wonder he didn't ask us to mount guard over his car.
Yes, Mr. Joseph Horden has a habit of speaking from a great height, both on and off the bench.
You don't have much time for him, eh, sir?
I can't say I'm particularly fond of him, no. Inspector Gamble likes him even less.
Oh, thanks for coming in so late.
Not at all, Gamble. I still fail to see why you had to meet me here. Now.
I'm sorry if you've been inconvenienced, sir, but it is a matter of discretion.
I should have said it was just the opposite. For me to appear in this office, even at midnight, could give rise to some quite damaging speculation.
I can explain. I think you'll find it's the best course.
All right. But try not to be too long about it. I've got a busy day tomorrow. Not to speak of having to be in court in the morning.
Don't you usually sit on Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Oh, so you fellows do make a point of checking out which magistrate you'll have to deal with.
Well, I'd hardly put it that way, sir. When we're ready to take a case into court, it's immaterial who hears the evidence as long as we've done our job properly.
Yes, of course, Inspector. Well, for your information, I may be having to take Mrs. Vaughan Roberts' place on the bench. She's unwell.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Sergeant Hicks.
Would you like some coffee, sir?
Oh, thank you, Sergeant. No sugar.
Well, I've been over to the hospital, as you know.
Do you have the latest news?
Keever's condition is unchanged.
Still in a coma?
It's doubtful whether he'll ever regain consciousness.
Oh, devil. What on earth possessed him to do it?
That's what we have to try and find out. It's a pity he didn't leave a note.
Yes? Oh, right away, sir.
Here.
Gamble, there's something I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Considering the lack of detail at this stage, aren't we rather jumping ahead?
Are we?
Well, I mean, all this activity in the small hours of the morning, the fraud section being involved straight off. The inferences that could be drawn.
And when a chief accountant attempts suicide at his desk, there are at least grounds for suspicion.
Possibly. But in my judgment, and I think I've been long enough on the bench...
Now, Mr. Horden, can we get one thing sorted out right away? I haven't asked you here as a magistrate. I want your cooperation as managing director of Park Bank Mutual.
On the strength of an air ticket to Switzerland.
And the CID man's notes from the hospital, sir.
A seriously injured man's delirious mumblings. Damn fine evidence that makes.
Inspector Gamble felt he had to move fast, sir, hence my own mode of dress.
Yes. I come back to the office to pick up a few papers and find he's opened up the bloody shop. How many other members of this department have been recruited for the night shift?
I think someone's trying to find Constable Fox in case he's needed.
Well, I don't like it. I'd at least have tried to contact me first. Better be handling Horden very carefully. All people in town to have to question in this manner.
I think the inspector's pointing out that it's in the Building Society's interest.
I just hope that the inspector is remembering our interests and his own if he goes too far. If this turns out to be a false alarm, we could all be for the high jump.
Suppose the morning papers will pick this up.
They're bound to, through the hospital.
But not necessarily your sudden concern with the case.
They might.
What will you say? The phone rings and it's the press.
Merely that we're making inquiries.
I still can't believe it. A man like Charlie Keever. Difficult enough to imagine him possessing a gun, let alone having the courage to pull the trigger.
The most unlikely people do it.
Well, I'm sure it must have been for some very personal reasons. Some sort of domestic trouble, health worries, perhaps crisis over a woman even.
What, at 62?
Well, all right. Well, whatever made him shoot himself, I really can't accept this suggestion that he may have been dishonest within our organization.
What makes you so sure?
Charlie Keever wouldn't fiddle so much as a bus ticket. None of our employees would. So it troubles me deeply, Inspector. The building society depends on an absolutely trustworthy image.
Yes, I've noticed they go all out for it.
Because of an unfortunate incident like this, Park Bank could detract some very unfortunate publicity.
Yes. I think you'd better listen to this, sir. Couldn't keep it up, can't go on.
What's that meant to me?
These are Keever's words, taken down by a CID man at his
Now,
bedside.
look here, Gamble.
I didn't want to, not fraud. No good speaking to Horden.
Why wasn't I told of this? I wasn't informed of this at the hospital either. Surely it was your duty to tell me the moment I got here.
I'm sorry, sir, but I wanted your opinion of Keever as an employee first.
Well, you have it.
Well, surely you must have a different opinion now you've heard that.
I still don't accept that he's been swindling us.
Naturally, you want to protect your organization.
That report isn't evidence of anything. Now, if you don't mind, I think I'm going home.
Mr. Horden, that report isn't proof of anything, but I think you'll agree there is a case for going through your company's books.
What utter rubbish!
And as soon as possible, right now.
Inspector Gamble, when I get into my car and start driving, I just might reconsider my decision to report you to the highest authorities. Firstly, for dragging me here at this hour of the night to sit in your office while you withhold information from me to which I'm entitled. Second, for your unwarranted determination to whip up some sort of scandal about my building society. And thirdly, for having clearly taken leave of your senses. I was a fool. I should have insisted on Superintendent Proud coming in, and I should leave that door open. In fact, I should open a window, let some night air in to cool your fevered imagination.
Perhaps you'd like to cool down a bit yourself, sir, and think about what Keever said.
Put it bluntly, stray words from a torn mind.
Nevertheless, he mentioned fraud, and he mentioned you.
I'm his boss.
Yes, I know. And you're the first one to hear this report.
What difference does that make?
I'm trying to do you a favor.
In what way?
None of your fellow directors have been told yet.
Inspector Gamble, do you know any of my fellow directors?
Only by name?
Well, since you're a man of business of a sort, I'll tell you. They're the laziest set of loafers it's ever been any managing director's lot to have to cope with.
Ah, so you are willing to let your company's image slip that much?
Only in private. And only to let you know that I run Park Bank Mutual. So you see, if I blow my top about your suspicions, it's because I naturally take it very personally.
I understand.
Just try finding one of my fellow directors in an emergency right now. Shall I tell you where they are? Two of them are up in Scotland playing golf. One of them's in his yacht somewhere in Denmark. The chairman, who's practically senile...
Didn't he get an OBE for his services to housing?
Well, at least I can tell you where to find him. He's flat out drunk at his country club. Believe me, this isn't the only burden I've got to bear.
All right, but that doesn't mean to say you don't have a responsibility towards your board or to the thousands of people whose money makes up your funds.
You still can't resist giving me a lecture on my executive function, can
Look,
you?
I'm simply asking you how you can be satisfied that everything's in order.
Well, I've given you my answer. Kiva's action does not justify me in opening my books for inspection. If there's any probing to be done, I shall do it.
And if there is a fraud, I hope you realize that you're legally bound to report it.
No, I will remind you that I'm a magistrate. Do you seriously believe that a man in my position is going to hide a criminal offence?
Mr. Horton, as I pointed out earlier, I asked you here for your cooperation.
Well, you're not exactly going the right way about it, are you?
I'm sorry if you feel that way.
Would I be wrong in suggesting that you can only just barely conceal your personal dislike of me? Something I've noticed in court, you know. A lot of policemen would be only too happy if they could just drag their quarries off to jail without having to face the bench.
All right, since you brought it up, yes. There has been at least one occasion when that might have been easier.
Oh?
The Leishman case, for instance.
Name means nothing to me. We do have some hundreds.
This was a man you let out on bail.
What's a fairly common occurrence?
In this instance, it was rather an unfortunate occurrence.
Suppose I better read that report. I put in a picture. What is going on in there?
Well, I'd say by now it's eyeball to eyeballs.
Oh, I thought as much. I ought to go in there and break it up. I don't want Horden using me against one of my own men.
Sir, just what is it between them?
Well, Gamble lost the conviction and he blames Horden for it. Shouldn't interfere in this manner, but I expect that it will.
Must have been before my time.
Yes, it was. A man called Leishman, running a racket in toy imports. Inspector Gamble needed a remand in custody to type some inquiries, and Horden, surprisingly, gave bail. Of course, Leishman nipped smartly off and covered up the evidence. Case collapsed at the next hearing.
So I'm right. There is a personal basis for all this.
I'm concerned with the matter in hand.
You mean you're determined to expose our company?
Exposing is your choice of word, not mine.
I meant exposing it to investigation. Anyway, it amounts to an intrusion into a company tragedy. Now, I really must be going.
Listen, while you and I are alone,
Oh, I've never noticed privacy making a difference with you.
leave here without agreeing to a check on your books, and you might get just the kind of bad publicity you don't want.
In what way?
An examination can be forced at any time. According to your Articles of Association, it only needs the signature of 24 members of your society.
Then get them.
I will. Tonight.
Are you threatening me, Inspector?
Warning you.
And suggesting we inspect the books in the middle of the night?
A phone call to your secretary, a taxi.
Just like that.
What could be more discreet? The rest of the staff wouldn't know. Look, do it my way and we'll find out quietly whether or not Kiva's been involved in a fraud.
Why tonight?
If you leave it till tomorrow, you'll be hounded by the press. You won't be able to move. Your society's reputation, bang.
Excuse me, sir. The superintendent wants to see you straight away.
Crowd still here?
Apparently.
Well, you can tell the superintendent that I shall probably be wanting to see him myself.
They say nighttime's the best time for this. We never seem to be able to keep plants in this office. They get shriveled up so quickly.
Well, I'll tell you why. Central heating. Robbing the air of humidity. Here, let me. Oh. There we are. Now, just keep topping that up. You'll soon notice the difference.
Thanks for the tip.
Oh, dear, clumsy of me. Still, it's long past all our bedtimes, isn't it? Have you got a rag or something?
I've got a tissue.
Inspector thinking of taking out a mortgage?
I'd have thought you'd have gone home by now, sir.
What, and leave you alone with Horden? Not likely. Well, I grant you the mention of fraud justifies our interest, but Kiva's words, no good speaking to Horden, could mean anything.
I don't think so.
Well, they hardly implicate a managing director and an underling in a crime that you haven't even uncovered yet, do
He's
they?
not sure I suspect him of anything. But there's no doubt about it, he was uneasy. And he was definitely shaken when he found out that Kiva had spoken.
You know, because of the way you feel about Horden, you could be drawing the wrong conclusions.
You mean the Leishman case?
So it has come up.
Well, what if it has? I could hardly have arranged for Kiva to shoot himself, now could I?
One word to Horden that you think he's mixed up in a swindle and you could be risking your career.
Oh,
You haven't got a thing to go on anyway.
look, when he let Leishman out on bail, I knew
And there you go again, you see? Leishman.
Well, there was something wrong in the court that day. I know it. I sensed it. The unaccountable whiff of sympathy for the criminal. A magistrate willing to be bent just that little bit.
What are we, psychiatrists or policemen?
A chink. A weakness. Well, think back. What was that man in the dock? He was a company director, a man whom we were sure was embezzling money right from under the noses of his colleagues. And Horden gave him a chance to escape conviction. Look, he may have done it unconsciously, and he may not.
Theories.
Well, what was wrong with my theory when Horden left the hospital?
Oh, you and your theories. If he'd known you'd had him shadowed...
Ah, but he didn't, and it paid off.
He went to an airline office and he bought himself a ticket to Zurich.
A one-way ticket with money out of his own pocket.
Could have been any number of reasons.
Yes, well, I'll give you the main one. Secrecy. Look, managing directors usually ask their secretaries to book their flights on the company. Look, wait a minute. He did say something just now that doesn't square up. Look, he said he may have to be on the bench tomorrow morning as a stand-in. Well, how can he do that when he's supposed to be on the 11 a.m. flight to Zurich?
He said may have to be on the bench. If not, well...
Yeah.
If he's been jointly defrauding with Kiva and intends to get out, why not on the first plane? There's a night flight at 4 a.m. Why wait till 11 o'clock tomorrow?
Yes, I know. I've been asking myself the same question. Well, I don't have an answer.
I'm afraid you're short of too many answers for my liking. It's getting late.
Look, if we let Horden slip out of our grasp now, he'll be gone for good. I know it.
Yes? Just a minute. It's for you.
Hello, Gamble speaking. Yes? You have? Yes, I guessed as much. Thanks.
Well?
Well, Horden left his car outside the building.
So?
So I sent Sergeant Brophy down to check it.
For what?
Look, there's a suitcase in the back, mostly filled with private papers, personal objects, mementos. Nothing very valuable, but just the sort of thing you might take abroad if you were never coming back.
Gamble, there's nothing we can do. Your attempt to get at the books has failed. We can only use our helping with inquiries line when there's a known offense to inquire into. So wrap it up.
You mean just let him go?
Quite frankly, I'm surprised that he hasn't walked out already.
Correct, and all records of recent transactions. Cash statements, investment reports. Yes, I'm most sorry, Miss Ireland. I do realize how late it is. Now, don't worry, you'll be fully recompensed. Have you got all that? Yes, as quickly as you can. No, I'm sure you won't catch cold. Oh, Mr. Kiva. Yes, it's most disturbing. Well, the books will be here in an hour. Looks as though you're in for a long night. Well, there we are, the whole shooting match. Perhaps you'd like me to turn the pages over for you.
Oh, we're a pretty experienced team. Twice as fast as any firm of accountants.
I'll remember that at the next annual balance. I don't know, it all seems damned incongruous.
God, fluorescence in the dead of night. What's the idea of pulling us out of bed?
If you'd been safely tucked up in your own bed, they'd have found you sooner.
It's one of your bright team of accountants.
Oh, Constable Fox, this is Mr. Horden, Managing Director of Park Bank Mutual Building Society.
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't recognize you. I'm afraid I'm a bit bleary.
Aren't we all?
But even if Horden made a beeline for the airport now, he still couldn't make the 4 o'clock plane.
He never meant to, sir.
I don't know why he's still here. In producing those books, he's done more to cooperate in the circumstances than I'd have done.
Well, he's shrewd. He knows I'm onto him.
Perhaps you could explain to me why he's remaining in this office.
Well, it's part of the man's confidence, his nerve. Well, it's these particular qualities that make Horden what he is.
I'm beginning to doubt your particular qualities.
Look, it's perfectly simple. He's doing everything he can to allay our suspicions. With Kiva still on his back in a coma, well, he can afford to take a risk. He's playing for time.
Before catching the 11 o'clock plane?
Yes.
Well, apart from not having any evidence, you don't seem to have much time to stop him either.
Well, I've got Sergeant Brophy out making some more inquiries, which might help. Oh, and Mrs. Keever's down at the hospital. I'm having her questioned there.
For all the knowledge I appear to have about what's going on here, I might just as well go home to bed.
Well, why don't you, sir?
Oh, no. No, I'm sitting this one out.
Your eager beavers are at it in there.
So, you finally made it?
I was staying at my auntie's, sir.
I still think this investigation is unnecessary and probably pointless.
I don't. If it's all clear, then we can quickly stop any nasty rumors from flying around.
Yes? Oh, thank you. Some food's on its way out from the canteen.
Oh, yes. I thought a snack might help to keep us awake. And there's a few more questions I want to ask you.
All right. Well, I shall have to let my housekeeper know. I've just realized she doesn't know where I am. She's liable to phone the police.
You can make the call from my office.
What about our night starvation?
Cheese and biscuits. Enjoy your work.
We will. Foxy's fascinated. He's just found one of his model dollies has got a mortgage on our cottage.
Oh, has he now? Don't try earning any extra favors by altering her repayments, will you? Thanks, Archie.
Beans on toast. The best I could do. And I had to pick a lock for that.
At least it's not bread and water. I think I'll stop by at midnight for a few words.
Gamble speaking. I see. Oh? Oh, yes. Yes, of course. Thank you.
News from the hospital?
Keever's still in his coma?
You mean he said nothing that could give us a pointer?
No. But his wife's at his bedside.
Yes, I really ought to go over and see her, poor woman.
You'll be able to see her pretty soon.
Oh?
Yes, she's coming round here.
She is?
To see me.
Couldn't even that have waited till the morning?
Apparently not.
Oh, hello, Mr. Horton. You still with us?
Yes, and frankly, I think I ought to have my head examined for allowing all this.
Inspector Gamble told me to arrange for us to go through the books. It's very helpful of you, sir.
Well, a person in my position could scarcely disregard a police recommendation. However, I'm glad you looked in, Proud. It's time you and I had a few words.
Certainly, sir, as you wish. I've just seen Brophy come in. Keep me posted, will you?
I will, sir. Oh, help yourself, sir. It's quite tasty.
Do sit down.
I have to say that I'm not at all happy about the way this investigation is being conducted, Proud.
No, sir?
Despite everything, I am a magistrate. I think I can say without any fear or desire for personal favor, someone of local importance.
I'm sure Inspector Gamble is well aware of that, sir. We all are.
Just hope for all our sakes there won't be any repercussions.
Not quite clear what you're driving at,
Just
sir.
this, Superintendent. I rather wish you'd had somebody else looking in on this sad case.
Inspector Gamble's a very good officer.
Oh, I've noticed that in court. He's also inclined to be too damned officious.
He's keen, thorough.
All this middle-of-the-night stuff. I should have had our legal advisors to look in on this.
But you're perfectly free to do as you see fit, sir.
This determination to find something amiss with our finances.
Yes, I admit it must seem a bit unsettling.
Unsettling, it's downright unnerving. The way Gamble seems determined to whip up some sort of a scandal.
Coffee, sir?
Thank you, Sergeant.
No sugar.
Well, how's everything going across the way?
Oh, well, so far your society seems safe as houses.
I think that's how you'll find it. Right the way through.
And I had quite a job checking back with only one night clerk, and he was also handling a tourist charter flight for Mallorca.
But you found a record.
Horton's made 5 flights to Zurich in the past 8 months.
Always paying his own fare?
Return on these occasions.
Perhaps he's got a little Swiss miss tucked away somewhere.
Or a little Swiss auntie. With a safe deposit.
I also popped into the newspaper.
News?
Oh, don't worry, I didn't let on. And picked up a few biographical details.
I see. Started as a warehouse office boy, night school, business college, insurance company before joining Park Bank Mutual, break for war service, ending up as lieutenant colonel. Member of umpteen committees, Chamber of Commerce, etc. Thanks.
What are you doing, writing a book about him?
Oh, boning up, as they say.
Just a minute. Now, look, Gamble. I've had to sit and listen to a lot of veiled threats from a VIP, and up to now that means a very innocent party.
Look, he's made trips to Zurich on the quiet before, sir.
Well, what does that prove?
Well, probably that he yodeled all the way to a bank. Well, of course, that's it. The reason he can't go until 11. He's got to wait for the banks to open here first. He's getting out with the last slice of the cake that he and Kiva have been nibbling at. And that's why he decided to cooperate tonight. I told him he'd be plagued by reporters if he left it till tomorrow. Every move he made would be public knowledge.
All right, suppose it's true. You still haven't got any real evidence, and he knows it. There's not one silver hair on his head that's out of place.
Well, it's time to ruffle him up, then.
And you've done enough needling for one day. If those books weren't here being examined, I'd take you off this case now for your own good.
Look, I've got to follow it through, sir.
Yes, to the sack, most likely. That's where you could be heading.
Well, I've still got a few hours left.
Well, that figure's easily explained. After the last bank rate increase, Mr. Kiva very sensibly transferred the whole column over here so as to reflect the general increase in the second quarter. Oh, Gamble, you have got me doing some of the donkey work after all.
I'm sorry about the delay, sir.
Look, if I'm going to be here much longer, I should be grateful if somebody could rustle me up some cigars.
The office machine only runs to cigarettes. £0.5
I think I know where I can find some. I didn't try one myself.
Well, it might add a certain tone. I should have been happy to offer you one over at my place, Sergeant. Oh, dear. Doctor's orders. I must say he'd have a fit if he knew about this, Vigil.
Ulcer?
Oh, managing director's disease. Fighting off another cardiac. Never got into business, Gamble. Well, I must say, with your head for company affairs, you'd have made a pretty good living. What do the police pay you?
Oh, 25,000 a year, plus car allowance.
Huh. Oh, dear. This fellow looks as though he's in need of a little resuscitation. There. Help us forget we're seeing the dawn in. I used to be a mad keen gardener. Of course, I live in a flat now. Children all grown up. And I happen to be divorced. Thought somebody mentioned to me that you were divorced.
Correct.
Not that I don't lead a pretty full life. Here, there, and everywhere.
The Midlands this morning, Switzerland by lunchtime.
Now, all of a sudden, it begins to feel like a police station.
You are booked on flight BE 106 for Zurich.
May I ask you how you knew that of my personal travel arrangements?
May I ask you how you can be on the bench as a stand-in this morning when you're supposed to be on flight BE 106?
Well, naturally, if I'm needed for bench service, I shall take a later flight. You still haven't answered my question. How did you know I was flying?
A routine check.
Check every day on thousands of air passengers.
Look, just tell me, why are you leaving the country at such short notice?
Oh. This isn't just an investigation into Charlie Kiva. You think that report suggests that I'm mixed up with fraud?
You reserved a seat on this flight last night, late last night, and you bought your own ticket.
Right, if you must know, I have some very confidential business to conduct.
Concerning Park Bank Mutual?
I'm prepared to answer that question.
But why a one-way ticket?
Very simply, Inspector, because I intended travelling back to England by train, stopping off to conduct some more business in Dijon, town I happen to be particularly fond of.
More confidential wheeling and dealing?
Not unusual for a person in my position to travel incognito.
Incognito usually involves changing one's name as well. But perhaps you intended to do that when you get to Zurich this time.
This time?
There have been other flights, haven't there?
Certainly, I've been to Switzerland before. Look here, Gamble, I don't know what you're up to, but be careful. Anybody listening into this conversation might think you were talking to a thief about some stolen diamonds.
I never called you a thief, sir. All that's happening at the moment is that we're looking for any signs that your company's assets have been unlawfully interfered with.
By me?
Kiva is the one who's under suspicion.
You're investigating me, too, aren't you? Don't deny it, Gamble. You'd love to pin something on me, wouldn't you? Well, this time you may have gone just a little bit too far, and if you have, I'll make sure that you pay for the consequences.
Mr. Horton, tell me, as a magistrate, have I made one single allegation against you?
Thank you, my dear. I only wish you'd been here just one moment sooner.
Mrs. Kiva's outside. She's under sedation, a bit hazy. But before I show her in, I thought you might like to study this.
What is it?
Foxley spotted it.
What?
It's the record of repayments on 20 to 30 houses in the lower mortgage range.
Oh, why should that attract attention? The money's accounted for, isn't it?
Well, it's the method of repayment that's odd. All borrowers to repay in annual lump sums, capital repayments plus interest.
Well, there's nothing unusual about that. Plenty of people like to do it that way. Though, naturally, we prefer the monthly system, may I?
Most people couldn't manage unless they could spread the load.
Especially the kind of people who need to borrow 3,000 or so.
There are people who save, you know. If Kiva's been swindling the company, this has nothing to do with it.
You're the expert.
If you're going to see Mrs. Kiva, I shall wait. Otherwise, it was my intention to walk straight out of this office.
Mrs. Kiva, this is Inspector Gamble and Mr. Horden.
Oh, Mr. Horden, I'd no idea you'd be here.
Mrs. Kiva, may I say how very sorry I am about all this. It's been a great shock to us all. Charlie Kiva is one of our most valued employees.
If only he could have... If only we could have talked. But I never thought he'd do a thing like this, never.
He was obviously under considerable pressure.
Oh, he was like everyone. He had his ups and downs, but as for putting a gun to his head...
Mrs. Kiva, your husband was due to retire shortly.
With an excellent pension.
Yes, Inspector. Only a month or two and we'd have had a new life together. And now they say that if he lives, he'll be an invalid. They say he might not even know me.
Mrs. Kiva, you wanted to see me about something. What is it? Would you rather Mr. Horden left?
Oh, no, it's all right. It's better if he stayed. Inspector, we were going to Portugal together.
Yes?
My husband had arranged to buy a house there.
Kiva, wouldn't you like to go home? We can talk about all this in the morning.
Oh, if only you could have talked to him last night, Mr. Horden, you might have stopped him.
What do you mean, Mrs. Kiva?
Well, when Charlie wasn't home by 8 o'clock, I was worried. He usually tells me if he's going to be late. So I rang up the office. I couldn't get any reply. So then I called Mr. Horden. I thought he might know if my husband was going to work late.
Fortunately, I knew nothing about it. You see, I had to leave the top table at the Commerce dinner to take Mrs. Kiva's call. There was nothing I could do.
Well, when 9 o'clock came, I was frantic. So I went round to the office myself. I couldn't get in. But from the street, I saw a light on in Charlie's room. You know the rest, Inspector.
Mr. Horden didn't tell me that you'd contacted him
He
last
didn't need to.
Yeah. Mrs. Kiva, there's something you ought to know. Before your husband went into the coma, he uttered a few things that suggested that he was in a state of guilt over a fraud.
He did?
Well, you don't seem too surprised. Does that mean you were aware of it?
Yes, I was aware of it. So was Mr. Horden. That's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Now, look here, Gamble, I can explain.
It must have preyed on his mind. But who'd have thought after all that time?
How long?
It was over a year. Oh, but he meant to pay it back.
Pay it back.
He's never done anything like this before. I'll pay it back, all of it, I promise.
How much?
It was £97.10.
What?
There you are, Gamble. There's your fraud. I hardly thought it worth mentioning it, but we've been up all night, all over £97.10. And now I'm going to see Superintendent Proud.
He was really only borrowing the money. It wasn't stealing. He'd every intention of paying it back.
But are you sure it was for only £97.10?
Yes, it was to buy something special.
I see. What?
It's a new carpet. We didn't want to get it on hire purchase. You see, Inspector, we don't have any savings. When our daughter got married and went to live in Australia, we gave her everything.
Yes, but...
The house in Portugal would have been paid for by the sale of our house here. I suppose you've often heard these kind of excuses for fraud, Inspector.
Well, the frauds we deal with are usually rather bigger ones.
Well, now you know. My husband was a thief. He took money from the funds after 19 years with the society.
But Mr. Horden was understanding, I suppose.
Oh, yes, he was very kind. Even when he found out, he allowed Charlie to pay it back out of his salary. I suppose my husband couldn't forgive himself for his dishonesty.
Come in.
The hospital's just phoned. They want Mrs. Keever to go back there.
What is it? Has Charlie come round?
They didn't say, but I've got a car waiting.
Horton still with Prout?
I have explained it all to the inspector. Now I've been asked to hurry back to the hospital.
I do hope it's good news. And may I say, Mrs. Keever, how very sorry I am for all the trouble you've been put to.
Oh, thank you.
So, Keever wouldn't fiddle as much as a bus ticket, and you, of course, as a magistrate, wouldn't go along with the felony.
True, I didn't sack Charlie Keever when I might have. But it's got damn all to do with you.
Hasn't it?
You know, Gamble, everything you say sounds like snapping handcuffs. What's the matter? No convictions lately?
I don't have to take that from you, Horton. You can keep your schneid remarks for the bench.
I've reported everything to the superintendent, including your insinuations.
The case isn't over
Oh,
yet.
go to bed. Come to think of it, he may have a lot of time soon for resting.
Well, come to think of it, why don't you read this report again?
Be reasonable, man. There's no point.
Isn't there?
We know why poor Charlie did it. It's true. I might have mentioned that money when I didn't.
Keever
But
talked about fraud, not petty cash.
You haven't succeeded in discovering any other fraud.
I think we have. I didn't want to mention it in front of Mrs. Keever, but I did as you asked. Phoned about a dozen householders on that list.
You did what? This hour of the night? What householders?
They don't pay annually. None of them makes any repayment. They all own their houses outright and have never borrowed a penny from Park Bank Mutual.
Walter S. Kinsley, 27 Gurney Crescent.
Loan 4,500.
Henderson, 4 Meadowbank Village.
Loan 2,300.
All these transactions must have been put through last year.
Very crafty, the ghost borrowers, but in each case, a real house fully owned.
I'm astounded.
What's the total, Hicks?
Well, 29 houses are involved, and Foxy works out that the building society is short of something like £100,000.
Near enough.
£1,000? My God, this could ruin our image.
Not to speak of all the small people with their money tied up in Park Bank Mutual.
Nusquam optima basis.
What?
The motto on the society's crest.
No finer foundation.
Christmas crackers.
Inspector Gamble, I owe you a profound apology. There have been some harsh words and accusations, but I must admit I was wrong. Completely wrong about Charlie Keever. No wonder he muttered something about not being able to tell Horden. Might have been tempted to shoot the bastard myself.
You see him in a different light now.
The blackest. Suppose we don't discover where he's put that money. Supposing he's even spent it.
I've got a pretty good idea where it'll be.
You have?
Canteen's opened. I sent down for some breakfast.
Oh. I could do with a stiff drink. Hey, time's getting on. Don't forget, I've got a plane to catch in the morning. That is, if I haven't got to do bench service.
You're still going to Switzerland under the
All
circumstances?
my business is far too urgent to postpone. However, I might skip Dijon and come straight back. Is there a washroom somewhere?
Yes, through there on the left.
What's your motto?
No foundation stone left unturned. All right, Foxy. Thank you. You can go now. Take the morning off.
Thank you, sir. Should just about make it for breakfast.
With Auntie?
I suppose I ought to congratulate you.
Wait until I've nailed Horden.
Well, we've uncovered the fraud, but we've still no proof of Horden's connection with it. He could be just as innocent as the other directors who approved those phony loans.
Except that he isn't.
Oh, Keever's in no position to talk. I hear his condition's even worse.
Look, we've got to stop Horden getting on that plane.
He's a perfect right to leave, and you know it. Couldn't he be charged with leaving his Rolls-Royce outside since I sanctioned it? Time's running out.
Look, sir, I'm following a line suggested by something Mrs. Keever said, and I think it'll succeed.
Divisional CID for you.
Thanks. Oh, Gamble speaking? Yes? Oh, yes. Right away. Thank you very much. Bye.
Another case come up?
Oh, just another facet of this one.
What now?
Well, it's always surprised me that Keever didn't leave a suicide note, especially as he was so fond of his wife, and more especially since he made the formal gesture of carrying out the act at his desk.
Well, no note was found.
But nevertheless, he wrote one.
How do you know that?
When they found Kiva, he was slumped over his desk. He was bleeding rather badly on the blotter. On further
He'd
examination...
written a message on the blotter?
No, but he penned a letter on top of it, using a ballpoint. And part of what he wrote is discernible.
Oh, that blood gives me the shivers.
My dear Mary, well, that's his wife's name, that's clear enough. Now, there's this next bit. The money that has been appropriated has been transferred to Swiss something bank, numbered account 3J something something 48.
I'm damned. He put it into a numbered account. And we don't know the number.
No, it's quite clear his wife wouldn't know it either. She thought that his big crime was over £97.10. Oh, I'm afraid we'll have to get Mrs. Keever up here to make a formal identification of the handwriting. And she might be able to help us with one or two of these other squiggles that we can't make out.
Right.
If he dies...
You thought he was dead before, didn't you?
Say that again, Inspector.
When you went round to Keever's office and removed the suicide note that implicated you.
It's not just Charlie who's got brain damage. This is ridiculous.
Well, now we know there was a note. It's clear that somebody removed it. The Park Bank building wasn't broken into, so that someone must have had keys. They must have known their way about. But you made one mistake, Your Worship. When you left, you turned the light off. The CID boys found Keever in the dark.
Gamble, this time you've gone too far.
Have I? Mrs. Keever said she saw her husband's light on in the office from the street. The building was locked, so she went to phone the police. That's when you must have slipped in. You must have missed the police by seconds.
And in not many more seconds, I shall call your superintendent and my lawyers. This is preposterous.
Not at all.
You seem to forget. I was at an official dinner last evening.
But not at 9 o'clock when this picture was taken. You said you were at the top table. Well, there's an empty seat. And I assume that the town hall keeps its clock at the correct time.
I had to vacate my place at the table because I was indisposed. With my heart condition, I shouldn't eat heavy meals. Anyway, I returned to my place the moment I'd rested in an anteroom.
Oh, yes.
You've hounded me all night, haven't you, Campbell? Well, this time I'm going to hound you right out of the force.
And when you found Keever with his hand in the till, you didn't sack him because you had the perfect accomplice for a much bigger operation.
I refuse to listen to any more of this rubbish.
And what about poor old Charlie Keever? He'd have been sacked. He wouldn't have got his pension, so he went along with your fraud, and no doubt you promised him a cut. But he exploded before you were ready to get out. Well, I'll tell you something, Horden. You're not getting out. Yes?
Mrs. Keever's on her way over.
Right. Take her in there. Show her the blotter, will you? Oh, and then ask Sergeant Brophy to come up here, will you? I want him to keep Mr. Horden company while I go and talk to the superintendent.
Under arrest, am I?
I didn't say so.
Come on, you Gamble. You're making a bloody fool of yourself. Until now, I knew nothing of what Charlie Keever had done. Nothing at all. Nothing of what you say about me is true. Do you hear that? Nothing whatsoever. You've got no proof in the world, and you can take that as from a magistrate, whether you like it or not.
Just the two of you?
Yes, of course. What did you take me for?
You faced him with all this?
Yes.
How did he shape up?
Well, you know Horden. To take a sledgehammer to make him crack, even though he's as guilty as hell.
I'm sorry. It's all Keever. There isn't a fact we can produce. Not one single witness to implicate Horden.
Yes, I know, but it... Yes, any luck?
I've left Mrs. Keever in the general office. She's terribly upset.
I'm afraid we've had it, Gamble. Horden wins.
Oh, so he collects his cash, flies off to Switzerland, and disappears.
Only Keever could have put the word on him.
All right, Horden, you can go now.
Well, so you've come to your senses at last. I must say, I wish it hadn't taken all night. Sitting cooped up in this office, I was beginning to feel like a criminal.
There's no charge against you, sir.
Still can't believe it. Well, it only goes to show.
Show what?
Well, that you can't trust anybody, I suppose. Well, Gamble, it'll take me a long time to forget tonight. But I'll try not to hold it against you in court.
Thank you, sir.
Inspector Gamble's office? It's the hospital. For you, sir.
Gamble speaking. Yes, Doctor? He's regained consciousness. He said what? Yes. Well, have you got all this down? Well, can you give me some more? Yeah. Yes? Yes? Thank you, Doctor. Yes, that'll be sufficient. Oh, yes, indeed. I'll tell Mrs. Keever. Yes. Oh, better still. You can tell her yourself. She's in the other office. I'll have you transferred. Hang on. Oh, hello, switchboard. Put this call through to the general office, will you, please? Thank you. Mrs. Keever, there's a call coming through from the hospital. Good news. Oh, Keever pulled through. And he talked, this time more coherently, about you.
What did he say?
That you'd held a petty theft over his head for £97.10. You pushed him too far.
Damn him. And damn you.
Too bad. You almost made it. Tell me, you'd reached the top. Why did you throw it all away?
The top? I've got a nominal financial holding in the company. I wrote half my life for Park Bank Mutual. 90% of the work and 1% of the profit.
So you decided to adjust the balance?
Oh, I don't know. Once it got started, it was just like running any other business. Charlie didn't know. This was going to be my last trip to Switzerland.
Leaving Keever in the lurch.
I couldn't wait 6 months for him to retire. The annual audit would have shown discrepancies. Not the sort of thing you can keep up forever, you know.
No, quite. All right, Brophy. Take Mr. Horden down to the charge room, will you? I'll be down later to prefer the charges.
Skeever, I'm so glad. I'll try and take as much of the blame as I can, try and shorten whatever sentence Charlie may get.
What are you talking about?
What hadn't you heard? Surely the telephone call.
All I know is that Charlie's dead. He died 10 minutes ago. He never came round.
Hicks, take Mrs. Keever into the general office, will you?
You lied. He never spoke a word. You lied.
That's right.
You bastard.